The Game of the Year awards for 2024 are fast approaching, and the nominees have been presented. So I'm going through the categories and giving my vote. Wait, what's this? Dragon's Dogma 2 for Best RPG? Huh. I actually forgot that I had even played this game until I saw it listed for Best RPG. I realized that if I was to consider my vote fairly, I would have to take the reins once again and attempt to remember what it was about this game that made it somehow feel both magical and at the same time forgettable. And to tell the truth, it's either that or Elden Ring, because those are the only two games on this list that I played this year. I initially even had my doubts about whether it fit the genre of RPG. I personally never had the feeling that I was making choices and role-playing the type of character that I wanted to, like you might expect from other games in the genre, such as Baldur's Gate 3 or The Witcher 3, but the Game Awards description is, for the best game design with rich player character customization and progression, including massively multiplayer experiences. I feel like that could actually cover tons of games that aren't RPGs, and if you want to be a jerk about it, The Witcher 3 also probably wouldn't fit due to the lack of character creation. Additionally, if you're being really annoying, I think you could get Rocket League to fit that description, but I digress. We'll use that description. It's an RPG, but I wanted to know if it was the RPG of the year. I remembered a lot of good and a lot of bad, so stick with me as I explain what exactly went right and what went wrong. This is Dragon's Dogma 2. Because character creation is such a significant part of the category's description, let's start there. This game has one of the best character creators I've ever seen. It's got detail down to the point of being able to pick which teeth you want missing. And unlike really anything like it before, your height and weight actually affect gameplay, which is pretty awesome. I never felt like physical attributes of my character had ever truly impacted gameplay in any other game I've played before or since. But like I'll get into in a minute, this is a bit of flavoring on a system that I never felt realized its full potential.
Let's save our fire magic for another time.
The combat is easily the most enjoyable part of the entire experience. There's a system within combat that allows you to grab any part of any enemy at any point in an attempt to gain some kind of advantage. That can manifest in picking up the corpse of a goblin in order to throw it at a harpy that's flying above you just out of reach of your sword, or when you're grabbing the leg of a cyclops, you can push it off balance so that you have the opportunity to wail on its weak spot before it gets back up. On top of that, there's a climbing system reminiscent of something like the Shadow of the Colossus, and character customization has a significant impact here, like I mentioned. Smaller characters can climb quickly. For example, if you're a small character and an archer, you can rapidly climb and leap off of enemies in some pretty awesome acrobatic maneuvers. But if you're a big old warrior dude, who I ended up going with, then when you climb a monster, you can unleash some blows to a weak point that does increased damage, and then leap off in a huge cleaving slash that can daze a monster or knock it off balance, leading to even more opportunities for damage. As a side note, anybody getting stomped like my guy does here should be dead 100 times over. There's a really cool bit of online functionality as well. In a style quite similar to a Dark Souls or Elden Ring, you get to feel the presence of online players through their proxies. In the Souls games, it's their messages, signs, and summons. Here, it's their pawns.
Arisen. I should have expected you may yet linger here.
You can recruit the pawns of other players that they have created, and they'll join your party to help you fight and whatnot, but on top of that, they can point out things that they found while traveling with other players, which, however briefly, makes you feel like you're part of a bigger world. That's the case for at least the first couple of times that this happens.
I've just recalled. I found a treasure chest near here during my travels beyond the rift. May I show you to its location?
But with that, the problems begin to bubble to the surface. Let's start with the pawns. There are a few different personality types that you can pick for your pawn when creating them, but all this impacts at all is how annoying they're going to be with their dialogue. So all it ends up doing is swapping which set of 5 lines, I'm being a little hyperbolic, but 5 lines of dialogue your pawn will say throughout the entire game. That brings up a deeper problem. They essentially make up this game's equivalent of the typical RPG party that we've come to expect from the genre, but unlike other RPGs, none of the pawns have anything interesting to say or do other than provide support in combat.
Let my magic strike you an elemental boon.
This isn't the way to our destination, but I presume you've a new one in mind. Lead on. A common reward. Frustratingly so. We cannot expect gleaming treasures round every corner.
A flawless execution.
Let us try for the same result with our next attack.
The pawn system is flawed from its conceit. Having a party of interesting and diverse characters that you as a player follow on a journey is the basis of some of the most compelling stories ever told. Stories are nothing without their characters, because they act as the vehicles that we, as willing witnesses of a story, and in the case of video games, as active participants, use to immerse ourselves within the world. The stories that understand this dynamic the best are the ones that usually find the most success, because when characters are written to an extent that allows us to empathize deeply with them, it can genuinely feel like you're another one of the friends along for the adventure. I think Jack Sather had a really interesting take on what the party system could have looked like.
Here's the last thing I'll say about the pawn system. Why does this game not have optional co-op? Here's another game with a companion system, perfectly fit to have your AI be switched out with one of your real life friends, and it would change literally nothing except you could experience it with your friend now. Why? I don't know, it's probably a stupid idea. Probably a stupid idea that would incentivize people to buy the game in groups and sell you more copies, but that's not worth investing in.
In the absence of interesting characters in your party, having proper co-op could have alleviated that issue, because at the very least, you and your friends are telling your own story, but it just isn't the case here. The pawn system exists in such a way where it feels as if someone knew that characters, their personalities, and relationships are the core of compelling storytelling. They realize that and then ask themselves, how do I create a party system that is completely antithetical to that very idea? For example, the lore surrounding them is vague at best, but it's clear that they are basically an entire race of people with no will of their own, but they exist solely to serve you, the player. So, without you, they're pretty much beings without free will, drifting from place to place. Which is a very bold creative choice if you're trying to create a sense that you are rallying the people around you in order to retake a kingdom, which Dragon's Dogma is clearly trying to do for a good chunk of its story. No good leader ever has people who follow them because the people can do nothing else. People follow them because the people believe in them as a leader. It doesn't feel good as a player to only be surrounded by companions because they are compelled to be there by forces beyond reckoning. You want to be surrounded by companions because they are people who decide to be with you. People who fought for you. People who would die for you. This is all to say that the pawns are not characters. They are little more than a game mechanic wearing a mask and a trench coat in an attempt to deceive players into caring about them. So maybe the party isn't interesting, but at least the story makes up for it with a compelling plot, right? Right?
I just think it's wild that they had 12 years to come up with a story. It retold Dragon's Dogma 1, and apparently he says that he's been working on this story for like 20 years. This is what you came up with? Dude, lie. Don't tell people that you made the story. It is worthless.
Yeah, so clearly the answer there is no. The presentation itself, when there's something large scale happening, is quite good. anything to do with the big bad main dragon is pretty awesome too.
This moment forth, thou art arisen. Charge and all.
But when it comes to anything ground level, anything smaller scale and low stakes, the storytelling falls flat on its face.
Well, I'll be. A pawn summoning before my very eyes. You truly are the Arisen, then. Strange. I thought the Arisen was in the capital. Surely there's only meant to be one Arisen. Fie, this is all beyond my ken.
You play as the Arisen, the chosen of the dragon, to eventually kill him. And that's the entire plot. At least the plot that matters. Everything else you do that doesn't involve that central conflict is a waste of time because it's utterly inconsequential. Initially, you feel like there's going to be something interesting happening with the whole retaking the throne plus pulling off some sweet espionage plotline, but none of that ever comes to fruition.
Your rival would have robbed the Queen Regent Disa of everything. To Disa, your Majesty's very existence is naught but an obstacle to her own family's continued prosperity. I shall devise some plans to further our cause. Pray, visit me a night in the tavern.
You spend the vast majority of your time doing quests trying to essentially win the favor of the people in your kingdom and the neighboring kingdom in order to ingratiate yourself with the people so that you can take your rightful place on the throne. Except, no matter what you do throughout the game, it will only boil down to a single choice right at the end. If they were just able to weave the normal human level plot elements into the larger plot in a way that contributed to the overall narrative, it would be so much more rewarding. But that's also a problem. There are no interesting human level plot elements. There are a few interesting side quests for sure, but none of it is compelling because there's not a single compelling character throughout the entire experience. Maybe the 2 in Dragon's Dogma 2 stands for it lacking 1, interesting characters, and 2, understandable dialogue.
Fie, this is all beyond my ken.
Traveling is a central pillar of Dragon's Dogma 2's gameplay loop. The vast majority of what you will spend your time doing is walking from point A to point B over and over again. This actually works in its favor for a while. The time it takes to get where you want to go makes the world feel big and each adventure feel epic, plus it gives you plenty of opportunities to explore along the way. Unfortunately, after a bit you realize that there isn't much to uncover. To use a classic analogy, the world reveals itself to be as wide as an ocean and as deep as a puddle. There is never interesting equipment or stories to uncover as you traverse ruins or, more likely, your 30th bland-looking cave. You'll make a journey once and spend literally an hour walking from one place to another to end up eventually needing to make that journey again, and nothing will have changed along your route. I could think of 2 ways to fix this. The first is to have dynamic events that can happen as you travel, similar to what Red Dead Redemption 2 does. And second would be to provide so many different paths to take to get to your destination that it's incredibly easy to branch off and take a new path so that you can discover something new every time you walk between 2 familiar destinations, similar to how The Witcher 3 lays out its world. You may have noticed, however, that both the games I mentioned, although you do a lot of traveling initially, also have very generous fast travel systems. I think ideally a game world could be so fleshed out and filled with interesting things to do around every corner that even if you visit that same corner multiple times in a playthrough, you are finding new and interesting things to uncover. The sad reality is that a game world with that level of detail is completely unrealistic. Fast travel, for better or for worse, is the solution to the inevitable reality of game design that necessitates retracing your steps over and over while traversing a large world. Dragon's Dogma 2's solution is pretty pathetic. Fast traveling requires materials that are incredibly rare, and there are only 2 or 3 fast travel points throughout the entire game. One out of the 2 major cities, Batal, doesn't even have a fast travel point in it, so if you want to get there for any reason, you better be ready for at least a 30-minute trip. You can certainly build your game around no fast travel being a core part of the experience, like they tried to do here, but you have to justify the player's time while they travel, because after you clear out the same nest of lizard people on a route you've taken over 10 times already, it makes the entire world feel stale and manufactured. When considering my pick for Best RPG of the Year, Dragon's Dogma 2's presence brought back fantastic memories, but also this sinking feeling. This feeling like I never got to see the game blossom into its fullest potential, which has become my main takeaway. Every system and mechanic I've mentioned is absolutely brimming with potential, except maybe the pawn system. They could probably rethink that. But my biggest frustration, truly, is that I can see the vision. I can see what they wanted. The incredible potential for exploration and discovery, and for intriguing and captivating stories to tell. There is greatness somewhere in the weeds of Dragon's Dogma. It's my only hope that they manage to find it with the next game. With all of that said, will I vote for it for Best RPG? Well, let me check the other nominees again first. Okay, yes, of course, Dragon's Dogma 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I heard good things. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, I know that's a good one. Metaphor Repentance was surprisingly good. Elden Ring! Yeah, that's the one. Hey guys, thanks for watching. This is the first time I've ever done a video in this style before, so thanks for sticking around to the end. If you see this, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment if you want to see more. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys again soon. Peace.